Good day, everyone. This is Junrei Kapin, and I'm going to discuss about budget deficit and public debt. Okay, class, what is budget deficit and public debt in your own understanding? Any idea? Okay, very good. Okay, the budget deficit and public debt is when a government expenditure on a goods and services or transfer payments exceed their tax revenue. The government has run a budget deficit, and whenever a government borrow money, this add to its national debt or public debt. For example, this is cosmetic enhancement of the US deficit and debt. The government financed spending more than tax collections. Since 1940, the US federal government has operated with a budget surplus in 13 years. In all other years, the shortfall of tax revenue below expenditure has been financed with borrowings. The official government deficit and net public debt may be huge, but the reality is even worse. Okay, just look at the graph sample. The US report typically only data on the federal government, the annual budget deficit, and net public debt. It also the US federal government per year is about 8.5% of the annual GDP. The state that the municipal budget were included, the figure for the total indebtedness would rise to 20.5% of the annual GDP. Just observe the graph sample again. And this is the question. Why has the government budget recently slipped from the surplus of the 2.5 of the GDP and a deficit of more than 8% of the GDP? Anyone? Okay, thank you. And this is the answer. Spending has increased at a faster pace since the early of 2000s, and the rates were reduced towards the end of the recession. Is it right? Very good. A government runs a budget deficit when it depends more on goods and services or transfer than it taxes. The governments borrow money to cover budget deficit, and whenever the government borrows money, it increases its national debt. The national debt is generally divided into three categories: floating debt, which means short-term borrowing such as treasury bills and borrowing from the central banks; funded debt, converting short-term debt to long-term debt; funded debt, national savings certificates, saving bonds, premium bonds, and security exchanging payable and abroad. Okay, sir. What is the difference between a budget deficit and public debt? Okay, this is the answer. The budget deficit is the amount which expenditure exceed revenue in a particular year, while the national debt is the cumulative effect of all the past budget deficit and surplus. Okay, understood? Oh, any follow-up question? Okay, Nan. And we go to the activities.